You know, I very vividly remember the very first Diary of a Wimpy Kid book I ever bought. It was in 3rd grade, right? We had a Scholastic book fair. You guys remember those? God, I missed them so much. But anyway, my first book into the franchise was Hard Luck, and to this day, I think it is extremely underrated. Of course, I don't need to retell everything about Diary of a Wimpy Kid, a wimpy middle schooler trying to get through the trials and tribulations of middle school and growing up. A lot of you watching are probably already familiar with Greg Heffley and his shenanigans, sometimes bordering the realm of sociopathy. However, with the popularity of the books came the live-action movies, which I won't cover as a whole. I mean, there are tons of other videos that have already covered everything there is to say about them, except when it came to the first movie's original character, Angie Stedman, played by Chloe Grace Moretz. Yeah, I know I probably have some head scratching trying to remember who she was, and I don't blame you. I have really seen no discussion from her anywhere that I've looked, and even in the movie, Angie had a total of less than 4 minutes of screen time in the entire movie. And to add insult to injury, she was not that greatly written of a character, but that's what I'm here to find out. Why wasn't she that good of a character, and dive deeper into her character to see if there's more to her than meets the eye. Of course, before I do that, you may be asking, why was she even created for the movie in the first place? And quite frankly, so do I. I swear to you, I tried to find out why she was created for the movie somewhere, and the closest I got was on the Diary of a Wimpy Kid wiki, where there was this video explaining why she was added, but so I suppose I'll never find out, but if you guys have any information as to why she was added, please tell me in the comments. As for Angie's role in the film, however, she is first introduced to us as a hardened recluse of the school after surviving 6th grade, who lets Greg and Rowley in on how middle school is really like and what they're in for. Angie's not all of a recluse though, as she offered Greg and Rowley a place with her under the bleachers as an act of friendship before Greg made it up an excuse to leave the situation, and this is honestly the last scene where we get any real substance behind her character. As for the rest of the movie, she only shows up to either give exposition behind the world building of the school, like with her informing Greg of the school newspaper and how safety patrol is viewed socially, or to ridicule Greg of his attempts to be popular, all before coming in all of a sudden at the end of the movie to congratulate Greg for being there for Rowley by eating the cheese. We were essentially teased in the beginning of who Angie was as a character to get us interested in learning more about her or to be invested more, only for the writers to seemingly forget she exists, only to randomly plop her in moments at random times of the movie to remind the viewer she exists without actually doing anything substantial to justify her existence. Which is really disappointing because I believe she could have been an integral part of the movie as not just a character in her own right, but in helping Greg overcome his character flaw of pretending to be someone he's not for the sake of being popular. See, due to the fact that she's a 7th grader, she has experienced the same things that Greg has throughout the movie, and due to her experience, it would explain why she felt gravitated towards Greg and Rowley. Possibly she empathized with their confusion as new students and wanted to show them the ropes so as to make their experience easier, and maybe even be friends with her, inviting them to stay with her under the bleachers. Now, I'm not saying that Greg and Rowley should have accepted her offer, however, considering the movie displays her clearly showing a continued interest in the two, I propose the movie could have used this to their advantage and had her act as a moral foil to Greg's desire to become popular, contrasting Greg's desire for popularity by helping him realize that popularity is not all it's cracked up to be. This would make sense for her character since not only is she experienced what middle school is really like, but it would also give as to why she's so interested in both Greg and Rowley more depth, as throughout the movie it seems as if she just pops up around them simply to observe how they are doing without actually contributing anything substantial besides ridicule towards Greg's attempt to be popular. Which I feel the need to clarify, ridicule is not the same as criticism, as ridicule is to belittle the subject at hand and not add anything of constructive value for the purpose of betterment to the subject being Greg's character flaw. Now, in fairness, Angie does kind of criticize and even attempt to warn Greg and Rowley to not join safety patrol, as it is essentially the bottom of the evolutionary ladder in her words, the lowest of the low, and that being there would only hurt Greg even more. However, it seemingly comes out of nowhere with her suddenly deciding to give Greg advice, as she already suddenly appeared in the scene when the writers remember she was in the movie, so it doesn't serve as enough to give her character enough substance to where she's a well-rounded character. So instead of Angie spending the rest of the movie after her introduction simply being to deliver exposition or ridiculing Greg, they could have had it to where those scenes when Greg is attempting to be popular or explaining to her his plans, she is criticizing them and offering advice as to why him chasing after popularity is not worth it. Take the scene when Greg dismisses Angie's offer to join the school paper, for example. She can still insult him as Greg inevitably is still rude to her. However, Angie could offer her 2 cents on why she thinks Greg attempting to be popular via being on the school paper is a bad idea. And when Greg does decline but ends up on the school paper in embarrassment, the payoff not only would be from Angie's petty revenge for Greg dismissing her offer, but also from Greg dismissing her advice as well and paying the price for it. It would also serve to boost the supposed payoff of her ending scene, where she just compliments Greg on a job well done without not actually offering anything to actively help Greg come to his realization, but not actually appearing enough in the movie to make it seem like her payoff scene doesn't just come out of left field, as well as make their official friendship at the end feel more real, as their interactions throughout the movie would have had more depth to make it feel like these two have been through a lot until finally climaxing at a point where they finally click after everything that has happened to them. them. Including her criticism and more scenes of it would not only serve to display how wise she is without having to explore her backstory to how she became so wise, but would also actively aid in Greg's character arc. Help to flesh out who she is as a person and also how she thinks and sees the world around her through her criticism that is founded on her experience in middle school, but also to help justify her constantly being around Greg and Riley throughout the movie, even though she never actually added anything of importance to the scenes she is in with them. Ultimately, boosting her relevance and importance to the plot of the movie from simply being a background character that just shows up when the writers remember she exists, to an integral part of the movie that not only serves as a primary source as to how middle school is from an experienced student, but also as an integral part of the character arc of the movie's main character. I like Angie Stedman. I think her actress did a good job portraying her, and I am disappointed in the end with how the movie treated her character, especially since Angie does not show up in the later films or make a transition to the books, further cementing her irrelevance in the franchise. Ironic, considering the first Diary of a Wimpy Kid movie is such a cultural phenomenon. Although I did find an old audition tape of another actress who auditioned for the role of Angie, Christine Mascolo, before it was given to Chloe Moretz. So feel free to check it out, as it's pretty obscure in my opinion, so much so it's not even listed on Angie's wiki page as trivia. In the end, I hope I was able to provide a potential alternative route for where Angie's character could have gone if she was given more to her character, as well as demonstrate why I think she is a weak character overall. Of course, these are just my thoughts. Let me know yours down in the comments below, and I'll see you all in the next video.